Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Song of New Covenant Academy. Today, we are having a podcast with our students, our very own students, Venera and Joanne, and I'm actually going to ask them to introduce themselves. So why don't you go ahead, Venera, first.
Hi, I'm Venera. I'm in 11th grade. That's, yeah.
Do you like anything? Like you play sports?
Oh, I play volleyball for the school team, and yeah.
Okay, and yeah. Okay, she likes Enya. And yeah. And Joanne?
My name is Joanne, and I'm a junior here at NCA, and I'm into cars. I like
cars?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Nobody really knows that.
Like cars, like cars?
Right, like types of cars.
Oh, types of cars, like trucks,
car brands.
Porsche.
No,
like,
I'm not into trucks.
All right, sorry, it's just a guy thing. Okay, so, but you're also part of the newspaper production team, right? Okay.
Yeah. And yearbook.
And the yearbook, okay. So the very important parts of the student life at New Covenant Academy. Last fall, they approached me and told me that they want to do their own podcast. So I think before they start their own podcast, I really wanted to know why they want to do the podcast and what that podcast for New Covenant Academy students are going to be like. My first question to either one of you is why do people do podcasts in the first place? Why do you think people do podcasts?
I think podcasts are really, really great in like sharing just ideas. You can kind of make like a community of like niche ideas that you like. I think it's just a fun, like, interactive way of, like, engaging with people, learning new stuff. So many topics you could talk about. I think it's really fun. Yeah.
Okay. How about you?
And I think when I think podcasts, I think people either listen to them for entertainment or to learn something. And with my experience in podcasts and listening to them, for example, there's the Dave Ramsey show, which is really popular.
It's all about money.
It's all about money, right?
Paying off the debt, right?
And our high school history teacher actually introduced that to us when we were, I believe, sophomores.
Yeah.
In the econ class?
Right.
Okay.
Right, and I actually learned a lot from that podcast, like the snowball method, which is, paying off small debts first and then large debts. And other than the Dave Ramsey show, another podcast that comes to mind for entertainment would be the Joe Rogan Experience, which is a pretty popular podcast.
I didn't know that you were into MMA.
I'm not.
No.
I'm not. But it comes clips of Joe Rogan.
And Joe Rogan is a controversial figure, to be sure. But he is somewhat insightful. He's no dummy. Right?
Yeah.
I've listened to some of his podcasts, and I'm like, dude, he's talking about like the beginning of the universe to UFOs to conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So he's not just talking about some entertainment, right? Okay. Do you know any? What are some of your favorite podcasts?
I think probably I really like music podcasts, like more kind of learning about like history of music. I know there's a lot of music artists that do podcasts. There's one specific one, not really about music, but just about like learning about like your life and growing up. There's one called Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, which is kind of like learning about like money and like how to handle it. It's about this woman like from Fresno who kind of just deals with like money and like society and like moving here into California and starting like a whole job from like nothing. It's actually really interesting. It's really fun. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not all into podcasts, but I do enjoy watching and listening to Jordan Peterson, and then there's he's a psychologist from Canada, and he's a conservative person, and he has profound ideas, especially for young people and young men. He's encouraging young men to be brave in living this difficult world, and I love listening to some of the stuff that he has to say, and I share that with other people as well. So I think podcasts have become very popular in our culture. I mean, obviously, I did not grow up with podcasts. So Dave Ramsey, I was reading his thick 300-page book on how not to accumulate debt, right?
Yeah.
But now he's explaining all of that and those principles in one segment at a time in podcasts. I'm really interested in hearing. I was surprised to hear that they're listening to Dave Ramsey podcast. If Dave Ramsey heard that there are young people listening to his podcast, I'm sure he'll be excited. Perhaps we could invite Dave Ramsey to your podcast. Okay. Because we got to think big, right? We don't want to just do small stuff. So Why do we need to have a podcast at NCA?
I think it'll be fun for the student body. I think just like talking about random subjects or like school events that are happening, I think it's just fun to kind of listen to and just like kind of relate on certain things to your students, kind of learn more about it. I think it's just a really cool thing. Like I don't really see that a lot in high schools that I've heard of. So I think it's
Would it
really
be
cool.
fair to say then you'll be inviting other students to come onto your podcast?
Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Student life.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe something that could be as controversial as plagiarism,
Yeah.
AI usage, right? I mean, these are
Right.
some hot topics for
Yeah.
any high school. Any other thoughts? Why should we have a podcast?
Right. I think one of the really main core values in the NCA is definitely around community because we're a smaller school.
Right.
And so I think that we as students or even just NCA faculty members, we should always be hopping at that chance to get to know a little bit more about each other and to really build that community. So I think that a podcast would really help with that. And coming especially from students, I feel like teachers will get to have another way to really learn about their students.
Yeah.
This is a danger zone, though. I want to let you know, right? This is
How
not going to
come?
be a
How
gripe
come?
session or anything like that.
No.
Okay, so that's on the record. So it will not be a
on the
gripe session,
record.
teachers. So let's talk about some specific topics. Okay, we kind of mentioned some of the things that we could do, but what would be like a hot topic that we need to talk about?
I think apart from like student events and stuff, I think just discussing like student life, like being in an IB school, it's definitely harder.
Wow.
Right.
And I think talking
Right.
I
about,
like
you know,
that.
topics like you don't really feel like as alone if like as a student, if you think you're struggling or falling behind, if we kind of mention like just that you're not, it's not like so isolating, I think it could be really helpful and really like just like comforting to listen to. Like other students who are like struggling with things or like if you are kind of lost in the IB because it could get a lot, it's like a lot of stuff to kind of learn first. So I think it could be fun just to connect with students and stuff.
I like that IB idea
Yeah.
because most students who grew up within our school understand what the IB is in general, but it's only when you're in it and
Yeah.
you start to see the assignments and tasks and, you know, paper 1, paper 2, paper
Right,
3,
right.
right? When you go like, what is that?
Yeah.
Versus what essays are for, and how you're going to build that up to a, you know, maybe perhaps to the extent extended essay and such, and you start to get those things. But perhaps sharing that early on with high school students, even other parents, would be very helpful. I like that, and I appreciate that. What about some things like I could think of like a hot topic like cell phone policy,
Oh my goodness. Wow.
because last there's this silence here, and I think we need to kind of bring. Are we there? Hello, hello. We talked about how cell phones have become disruptive rather than effective in classrooms. And I made an announcement based on our internal discussion among administrators and teachers that we ought to have cell phone lockers where we deposit our cell phones, lock it up, and then pick it up at 2:45 after school. Okay, any thoughts? Would that be a potential topic?
Not a favorited one.
Not
Not a popular one.
a popular one.
So I'm assuming that I will not be invited to this podcast if when they start to do their own. But
Maybe.
what other hot topics on your mind, Joanne?
Some topics that come up to my mind are definitely sharing extracurricular activities. I think that being able to kind of open each other up to new hobbies would be a really good idea.
Hobbies. Or maybe even service opportunities.
Right,
Maybe some
right.
people who are doing certain volunteer work
Yeah.
that we could invite other people to join. Okay, good. Okay. So do you have any guests in mind? Like right off the topic,
Ooh.
who would you invite? And you know, it could be your fellow student, it could be a teacher, it could be an administrator, Pastor Ted, maybe some parents, or I don't know, maybe younger students.
Well, we were actually thinking about Pastor Ted for our first
Yeah,
episode because of the soccer team here at NCA. We were thinking about mentioning their accomplishments and achievements and talking to him about
Yeah.
the soccer team.
Yeah. How about some seniors, right? Because they're
Ooh,
about to,
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
they're about to wrap everything up and move on to the next phase of their lives. It's the very in a lot of schools, the last semester of their senior year is basically a kickback time. We're just kind of, you know, lounging around and just maybe getting C's and B's and just coasting through, whereas New Covenant Academy, when the majority of students are on track to earn the diploma, they have to work very hard towards the end. And I think the IB exams are administered even after the final exam is given in our school. So they have to keep pressing forward. It's not like they could put the foot off the pedal. And as you know, like 4 or 5 students have already gained acceptance in early admission. So they may kind of take it easy, but that's just not how it is at our school. We have to keep pushing forward. So, like in our winter break, we always have seniors come forward and like kind of leave us like a little bit of a, like, hey, like always listen to your teacher. It's like, man, I made all these mistakes. I hope you don't make these mistakes. And I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but I think maybe that kind of speech or what they feel is something that they could leave behind for the younger students.
Yeah, or even advice too, I think would be cool. Just to kind of, to get through everything.
Okay, good. So now we talked about what we're going to make and what we're going to cover, who's going to be invited, but who do you think will be watching or listening to this podcast of yours?
I think that the first thing that comes up to mind is definitely our fellow students.
Yeah, our classmates.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think. I don't know. I would love to see that happen. I don't think they're watching my podcast.
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. Yeah. Word gets around at NCA.
Have you watched the podcast?
I have.
Yeah.
Can you remember what I talked about?
I can remember what you talked about in the first one.
Okay, which is?
First one, it was about how like weight, I think, like how students need to be healthier.
Oh, there are
to have a healthy mind.
She remembers one of the 5 elements of high performing or highly effective students.
That's
and one
exactly
was
what I
about
said.
Health.
Yeah.
Right. Health.
Do you remember anything?
The writing stuff.
Yes.
Definitely.
With
Miss
Fafano
Johnston.
and Miss Johnston. Very good. So in addition to students, do you think potentially maybe other students outside of our school might be? Are you guys thinking about promoting this to students outside of our school? Or is it just within the community?
I think we would keep it within the community at first, and then if it ever does get really popular, then...
Just because we talk about topics that are kind of like associated with NCA a little bit more, so it's like it'd be harder to, expand.
I would think that one of the things that we could do is to promote it to our school parents as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the relationship that we see with parents and students is that they feel that whatever they're discussing is very private and nobody really shares that with others. But as you said, if you share some of the experiences with other students and they could chime in and they would agree with you, then I think the parents should be able to gain a broader perspective and a different perspective in dealing with their own child as they learn and hear about other students and what's happening in their lives. Now, I have a few more questions. Will this be a regular thing? Is it a weekly thing, bi-weekly, or whenever the topic comes up? Because I think you should plan on being it very popular, so that you just want to give your audience, what do you guys think?
I think once or twice a month would be pretty solid.
For now, once.
Once a month?
Yeah.
But what if we really like it?
Well, we'll see, I guess, Yeah.
Good things take time.
Yeah, so maybe at the end you would say, like, if you like us, you press that like button or whatever, and then we get more than 50, then we'll, boom.
Giveaway.
We'll pop in and do another one. Okay.
Yeah.
When they first approached me with the idea of doing their own podcast, I think you remember that I was very enthused and I was very supportive because I think we need to give our students the kind of voice where our school has always been known as a strict school, but it doesn't mean that we don't give voice to our students. And the channel has always been through the student council and the honor council and individual. But I think this collective thing in which you guys talk to other students and voicing your opinion, I think will be welcomed by the school community. I am not afraid of whatever they're going to discuss. And I think we'll, just as an adult and as a school administrator, I will be able to gain an insight to what's happening in your lives. I know that I'm probably one of the oldest people on campus, although I'm still very young.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, there was an awkward silence and a laughter there, but you know, the gap. I see the age gap between myself and you. I mean, you have to think about this. I was born in the 1960s.
I
you
know.
guys
That's a pretty long time ago.
Days far.
Okay, so I set myself up for that.
Cut that out.
Cut that out.
But I remember a lot more of the 70s and
Yeah.
80s when I grew up to what you're seeing is you guys are digital natives. You grew up with cell phones. You grew up with the internet. You grew up with, like computers and TVs and, technology. And there is that difference in perspective. And my own kids are, in their mid-20s now. They're in grad school and moving on with their lives. So I think I may also personally, I sometimes feel like I'm losing touch with our students. And this kind of a voice, this kind of opinion, what's important to them and what they want to talk about. And in a way, you could voice your positions and maybe perhaps even an appeal to the school school leaders as a whole. I think this might be a very, very good opportunity and a learning experience for all, not only for them in terms of producing the contents, but for us who are going to be, I will promise to be a viewer. I promise to be your,
Thank you.
maybe not your number one viewer, but I will absolutely view what you guys are going to be producing. Okay? Do you have any last minute comments before we close this podcast?
No.
Watch our podcast.
Oh yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned
For
for our
sure,
podcast,
stay
our
tuned.
first episode.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us in this podcast. This is Dr. Song and our lovely young ladies in 11th grade, Venera and Joanne. And please do watch their podcast in the future. Thank you for being with us today.